What's good, everyone, and welcome back to the Mayo Media Network. My name's Griffin Swanson. Today I'm going to be breaking down that Monday Night Football game between the Baltimore Ravens and the Indianapolis Colts. Got a couple of prize picks here that I like for this game. Now we're going to dive into my spreadsheet, breaking down the DraftKings Showdown slate. But before we do that, if you could like this video here, I'd greatly appreciate that. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel here. The Mayo Media Network has football content coming out Monday through Sunday all season long, and you don't want to miss out on any of that. For you podcast people, you can head on over to the Apple Pods or Spotify, find all the content there, and leave a 5-star review while you're at it. And let us know in the comments below, who's your favorite captain play for this DraftKings Showdown slate. But with that being said, folks, let's dive into it here, kicking it off with a couple of prize picks that I like for this Monday night game. So I'm over on the PrizePicks.com website here now. If you have not signed up for PrizePicks and you want to do so, make sure you use code MMN upon sign up for up to a $100 match deposit. It is completely free money, house money that you're playing with, and as soon as you put your deposit in, PrizePicks matches that. You don't have to earn it back like some of these other DFS sites where you have to play a specific amount of contests to earn that bonus. No, PrizePicks matches that up front, and like I said, you're basically playing with house money. So just use code MMN upon sign up to get that match deposit. Now, as you can see here, there's a number of different sports that we can play on PrizePicks too, obviously focusing in on this Monday night game, but you can mix and match a lot of those sports and players if you want. You can see here there's a number of different player props that you can choose from as well. Now, I have my eye on two different player props here for this Monday night game. The first is going to be a receiving yards prop. Scroll to the bottom here, and I'm going to choose Sammy Watkins over 40.5 receiving yards. Was surprised it was this low because he's hit the over here in all 4 games so far this year. He had 96 yards back in week 1, 44 in week 2, 68 in week 3, and then just last week he had 49. So like I said, just a bit too low considering he has hit the over in every single game so far this year. And it's not like he's doing this on 3 or 4 targets either. This guy leads the team with a 25.5% target share, and he's seen at least 7 targets in every single game so far this year, and he's kind of got that big play ability too. Now, just going through his game log here, he had a 49-yard catch back in week 1, hits the over just on that, a 36-yard catch back in week 3, a 20 in week 4, and 19 in week 2. So he's got that big threat ability. He could realistically hit the over here on 1 catch, but that really hasn't been the case with Sammy Watkins. 7+ targets in every single game so far this year, and has topped the over at 40.5 as well. I'll take the over once again in week 5. And then for my other pick here, we're going to stick with the receiving side of things, but we're going to pop on over to the receptions prop. Scroll all the way down to the bottom here once again, and I'm going to take the over on Michael Pittman Jr. at 4.5 receptions. This guy is leading the team with 26% target share this year, and he's seen 32 targets in just his last 3 games. Wasn't great in week 1, only had 4 targets there, but he saw 12 in week 2, 12 in week 3, and 8 just last week. He's hit the over here in 3 straight weeks as well. 8 receptions back in week 2, and then 6 in the last 2 weeks here. They're going to have to lean on him once again in this game, and that secondary has not been great for the Baltimore Ravens this year. In fact, he actually has the best wide receiver cornerback matchup in this game as well. I'll touch on that in the spreadsheet, but considering the amount of targets he's been getting this year and the matchup that he has here against Baltimore, I like the over at 4.5, and the Baltimore Ravens are actually 14-1 over their past 15 games at home while playing in a primetime game. And so like I said, the Colts are probably going to have to lean on Pittman Jr. in this game, especially if they're playing from behind. So to recap here, the two props that I like are both receiving props. We're going to take the over on Sammy Watkins at 40.5 receiving yards and the over on Michael Pittman Jr. at 4.5 receptions. Again, we can approach this 2 different ways, the flex play or the power play. If you go the power play route, you will need both of your picks to hit or all of your picks to hit, but it does increase the payout. And again, for those of you who do want to sign up for PrizePicks here, make sure you use code MMN for up to a $100 match deposit. But all right, folks, time to dive into this spreadsheet here and break down that DraftKings Showdown slate. Now, as always, kicking things off off here in the spreadsheet with the Vegas odds in the top left-hand corner. You can see the Ravens are sitting pretty nice here at home with a minus 320 money line and a minus 6.5 point spread. And then we got the over-under there at 46 points. Also got these showdown stats here from 2020 in regards to the top 1% of lineups and making the most optimal showdown lineups. Let's hop on over to this other sheet here. You can take a screenshot of these. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. Number one, 92% of all showdown lineups rostered at least one quarterback, and of the top 1% of lineups from last year, 96% did as well. Number two, 33% of all lineups rostered a wide receiver at captain. Of the top 1% of lineups, 31.4% did as well. Number three, 57% of the top 1% of lineups rostered a captain from the team favored to win. So in this example here, the Baltimore Ravens. Number four, run it back. An opposing quarterback, wide receiver, or tight end was included in 88.9% of winning lineups that rostered a quarterback, wide receiver, or tight end from the other team at captain. Number five, ignore defense and kickers in the captain spot. Very rarely does that work. Only 1.1% of the time last year in the top 1% of lineups. And number six there, do not play more than two kickers or defenses in the same lineup. Usually one is fine. But all right, let's go ahead and dive into my favorite plays here for this showdown slate, kicking it off with the captains. And for those of you who are new to these showdown videos, what I do is I always list out a captain from both sides of the game. Starting on the Ravens side here, I like Lamar Jackson. And yes, I understand he's the most expensive player on this showdown slate. You put in a guy at $18,900, doesn't always leave you with the best lineup construction afterwards. However, I do think there's enough good low-priced options on this showdown here to where we can make this work. And look, he's averaging 7 more DraftKings points than any other player on this slate. It's really hard to ignore that. This is a guy who's got 25, 30, even 35 plus DraftKings point potential. He's got the best ceiling on this showdown slate and a safe floor as well with that rushing upside. And usually you put in a guy this expensive, you're looking at the rest of your lineup going, ooh, I got to work with that. But I don't think that's going to be the case here on this showdown. We got guys like Sammy Watkins, Nyheim Hines, even Justin Tucker or Rashad Bateman if he plays. That would allow you to make this work, putting Lamar in the captain spot and make it look pretty good as well. So not something I'm always going to do, highlight the most expensive player in the captain spot, but I do think it works here with Lamar in this Monday night showdown. And then on the Colts side of things here, I like Michael Pittman Jr. in the captain spot. Talked about him during the PrizePicks section of this video, and per PFF, Pro Football Focus, he's got the best wide receiver cornerback matchup in this game. Right now it's coming in as a 75.1 matchup advantage over Tavon Young. And no, Tavon Young is not going to shadow him in this game here. Michael Pittman Jr. moves all throughout the lineup. But in terms of the best overall matchup, that goes to Michael Pittman Jr. and certainly don't want to overlook that. On top of that, he does lead the team in targets. He's getting a 26% target share, and the air yards have been insane throughout the first 4 weeks. He's seeing 41.25% of the team's air yards. Likely a number that is going to regress throughout the season, but needless to say, Carson Wentz is looking for this guy often, and he's looking for him down the field. I mentioned this during the PrizePicks section as well. He's seen 32 targets in his past 3 games, averaging double-digit targets during that time span, and he scored at least 12 DraftKings points in each of his past 3 as well, 12, 13, and 23. You know, it's not a blow-up game by any means, but considering the targets and air yards that he's getting, it's not crazy to think that he could be the highest scoring player on this showdown slate. Now, hopping on down here to my flex plays, first guy I got there is Marquise Hollywood Brown. Could also be used in the captain spot as well. Been solid through 4 games to start the year, and if it weren't for a handful of drop deep passes, he'd probably be talked about as one of the best fantasy wide receivers to start the season. He's averaging 7 targets per game right now. It's a 25% share on this team. 81.5 receiving yards. That's really great. And 0.75 TDs. He's got 3 TDs in 4 games, if you want to do the math there. And he's also ranking 9th overall in air yards across the NFL. He's got that deep threat ability, and you can bet that Lamar's going to look for him deep 2-3 plus times in this game, and he can definitely make plays happen, score a touchdown from anywhere on the field. So again, you could use him in the captain spot or a flex spot, but he's been pretty solid throughout the first 4 games to start the season. Now, I'd hesitate to say that Carson Wentz has been solid throughout the first 4 games. Sorry, guy, I went to college with this dude all 4 years. Don't want to bash him. Do think he's a viable option here, but he kind of has struggled to start the season. That offensive line hasn't been great in terms of blocking for him and pass protection. They've been really good in terms of run blocking. I'll touch on that with Jonathan Taylor, but this guy has been beat up already to start the year, and we know that he's battled injuries throughout his career. But look, in terms of a showdown slate, like I said, he is a viable option. He's hit 18 plus DraftKings points in 3 of 4 games, and again, I always go back to this first stat here. Of the top 1% of lineups, 96% had at least one quarterback in their showdown lineup. Now, that's probably Lamar in this instance here, but if you want to get a little more contrarian, you could probably do that with Carson Wentz. And then speaking of Jonathan Taylor here, I think he could be used in the captain spot as well. Honestly, when I was first making the spreadsheet here, I kind of threw him in there just based off the matchup here against Baltimore, but then I was looking at his snap count. This dude's only playing 50% of the offensive snaps through the first 4 weeks. Nyheim Hines is kind of dipping in that a little bit too much, hence the reason I have him listed below as well. But this is a solid matchup here against this Baltimore defense. They're allowing 26.3 DraftKings points per game to running backs this year, and PFF, Pro Football Focus, is giving the Colts offensive line a 34% advantage over the Baltimore defensive line when it comes to run blocking. So I think you could still use Jonathan Taylor in the captain spot, but just note he might only play around 50-60% of the snaps, and that's probably not ideal for your captain. You're basically banking on him going over 100 rushing yards and scoring a touchdown, or at least getting multiple touchdowns on half of the offensive snaps. So that's not ideal. Like I said, probably more of a flex play for me, but is a guy who can get you 20 plus DraftKings points, and if you think that happens, you could use him in the captain spot. Now, I find the Baltimore Ravens backfield to be very interesting right now, particularly because I watched one of Latavius Murray's interviews from this past week, just today, and this dude said, yeah, I don't really know who's going to be the number 1 running back week in and week out, kind of just going to go with the hot hand. And usually you hear that from the head coach or the offensive coordinator, not one of the running backs. So that's probably not ideal, but he did play 61% of the offensive snaps last week and led the team with 18 rushing attempts. And he's also got 3 touchdowns in 4 games. So that is encouraging. He is a little more expensive than I'd like him to be, hence the reason he's just a flex play for me. He's not really involved in the passing game either. Again, a guy who you probably will need to score in order to meet value, but as of last week, he was the number 1 running back for the Baltimore Ravens. Next, we got Sammy Watkins there. This is a guy who's had a great price tag of $5,800. I went back and forth between him and Mark Andrews, and yes, I think Mark Andrews is a fine play, but I lean towards Watkins just a little bit more. His numbers, like I said, have been very encouraging this year, playing 82% of the offensive snaps and leads the team with a 25.5% target share. Like I said, he's seen at least 7 targets in every single game so far this year. He's yet to score a touchdown. That is a bit concerning, but maybe he's due. Sammy Watkins, we've seen it plenty of times in the past. This dude can blow up for massive DraftKings point games, 30 plus DraftKings points. We saw it in Kansas City. We just haven't seen it translate here yet to Baltimore, but he has matchups here that I do believe that he can win. He's going to kind of move throughout the lineup as well, but I'm looking at PFF here right now, and there's not really one that I'm too concerned about when it comes to the cornerbacks for the Indianapolis Colts. Now, considering this guy has cut into so much of Jonathan Taylor's workload in offensive snaps this year, I had to talk about Nyheim Hines in the spreadsheet. He is more of a boom or bust type of player, and he's a pass-catching running back for the Colts. If you think the Colts are going to be playing from behind in this game or for a majority of this game, he's definitely a better play. Yeah, he's playing about 42% of the offensive snaps right now, sees about a 13% target share, and here are his DraftKings performances to start the season. 2.1, 3.2, 14.2, and 18.9. Like I said, kind of a boom or bust player. No, not a guy who's probably going to get you 25, 30 plus DraftKings points, but that's why he's priced here at $5,600. Definitely has the potential to get you around the high teens or even low 20s. But again, this is a better play if you think the Colts are going to be playing from behind for a majority of this game. And then I also want to highlight both kickers in this game here, Justin Tucker and Rodrigo Blankenship, 2 of the best kickers in the game right now, and Justin Tucker is probably the best kicker in the game. game. He's been solid again this year, hit 10 of 11 field goals so far, and look at his DraftKings numbers here. He did have one game where he only had 7 DraftKings points, but double-digit DraftKings performances outside of that. 11, 13, and 17 DraftKings points. Yes, that's when he hit that 60-plus yard field goal, and that's probably not going to happen in Baltimore, but this guy is very consistent and can definitely get you double-digit DraftKings points, and that goes for Rodrigo here as well. Another solid kicker. He's actually been able to hit double-digit DraftKings points in 3 of 4 as well, and actually in 3 straight games, he's hit 10, 11, and 12 DraftKings points. So again, these are better plays if you think the game is going to be tight scoring, and if it's going to probably come below that over-under of 46 points, but by all means, these guys can meet value and probably exceed it at their current price tags. And then the last play I got there is Rashad Bateman, far too cheap in my opinion at $200. And yes, I understand he's a rookie wide receiver. He's never played a snap in the NFL, coming off that sports hernia surgery, but he has been practicing in full here for 2 straight weeks, and they drafted this guy in the first round. As soon as he's active, they're going to want to get him involved and probably involved regularly. That's what we have to watch for, though, is whether or not he's actually going to play. And look, if he does play, he's probably going to be very popular considering he's only $200, but it allows you to do so much with the rest of your lineup. If you pay down for a guy like this, you could put Lamar in the captain spot, and there's a little correlation there as well, or you could just pay up for a bunch of high-priced studs. So make sure that he is active, obviously, if you're going to be playing him, but $200, really hard to ignore that. All right, everyone, that is going to wrap up the video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch these videos. Don't forget to like this video here, subscribe to the Mayo Media Network. Like I said, they got football content coming out Monday through Sunday all season long, and you don't want to miss out on any of that. And for those of you who do want to sign up for PrizePicks, make sure you use code MMN upon sign up for up to a $100 match deposit. I hope you had a great weekend here, folks. Won some money on Sunday. Let's keep that rolling into Monday night as well. I'm out of here.